Jin-Ho stood nervously at the designated landing site, a small clearing in the university's botanical gardens that had been hastily converted for this historic occasion. The winter air bit at his exposed skin, but he barely noticed. His mind was too busy rehearsing the greeting protocols he'd memorized. As a professor of linguistics specializing in communication patterns, Jin-Ho had been selected from thousands of applicants to host the first Niven visitor to Earth. His heart raced as the sky above darkened unnaturally, clouds swirling into a temporary vortex. The Niven ship descended silently, smaller than Jin-Ho had expected, barely larger than a delivery van. It hovered momentarily before settling on the grass with a soft hiss. University officials and government representatives stood back at a respectful distance, leaving Jin-Ho alone to make first contact. A seam appeared in the smooth metallic surface of the craft. Jin-Ho swallowed hard and straightened his posture as the opening widened. Tail emerged slowly, unfolding a body that resembled a human form, but with subtle differences. Taller and thinner than most humans, with skin that shifted colors slightly in the sunlight. Large, dark eyes blinked at the brightness of Earth's sun. "Welcome to Earth," Jin-Ho said, making the formal hand gesture he'd been taught. Palms open, fingers spread wide. Tal's translation device, a small disc attached near what appeared to be a collarbone, hummed softly. After a moment, Tal responded with an approximation of the same gesture. "I am grateful for the welcome," the device translated in a flat, mechanical tone. "I am Tal, research specialist in developing civilizations." The formal introductions continued as they walked toward the university building. Jin-Ho could feel the weight of making a good impression, not just for himself, but for all of humanity. "Your planet has a much higher oxygen content than I expected," Tal observed through the translator. "It makes the colors very intense." Jin-Ho wasn't sure how to respond to that. "Is it uncomfortable for you?" "No, just different. Everything is different here." The awkward silence that followed lasted until they reached Jin-Ho's apartment, which had been modified with equipment for Tal's comfort. The university had provided a special sleeping pod and atmospheric regulators, though Jin-Ho wasn't entirely sure how they worked. "This will be your home while you study our culture," Jin-Ho explained, showing Tal around the modest two-bedroom apartment. "I hope it meets your needs." Tal moved around the space with careful steps, examining ordinary objects with extraordinary interest. When the alien reached toward a lamp, Jin-Ho quickly moved to turn it on, demonstrating the switch. "Interesting. You still use manual controls for light," Tal noted. "Some lights are automated, but many are manual, yes." Their conversation continued in this halting manner, each exchange requiring patience as the translation device processed their words. Jin-Ho found himself speaking more slowly and choosing simpler terms, unsure of how well the technology captured nuance. As Jin-Ho prepared a simple dinner, explaining Earth food and cooking methods, a soft sound from the living room caught his attention. He hurried back to find Tal frozen in place, staring at something on the floor. It was just Miso, Jin-Ho's orange tabby cat, who had emerged from hiding under the couch. "That is a cat," Jin-Ho explained, "a domestic animal many humans keep as companions. Her name is Miso." Tal remained motionless. "It moves independently. Is it a form of technology?" Jin-Ho couldn't help but smile. "No, she's a living creature. Not human, but a different species we share our planet with. You cohabitate with other species." Tal's translator couldn't convey emotion, but the alien's posture suggested intense curiosity. "Yes, many humans live with animals. Cats, dogs, birds, fish. They're companions." Miso, unimpressed by their visitor, stretched and yawned before approaching Tal with typical feline caution. The cat sniffed at the alien's foot covering, then rubbed against it, leaving orange fur behind. "It's touching me," Tal observed, not moving. "Is this communication?" "Yes, in a way. She's marking you with her scent. It means she accepts you. Tal slowly lowered to a crouch, extending a long-fingered hand toward Miso. The cat sniffed it, then pushed her head against Tal's palm. The texture is pleasant, Tal said, carefully stroking Miso's fur. We have no such companions on Neva. All non-sentient life forms are maintained in conservation areas. Jinho watched this first contact between his cat and the alien visitor with fascination. Something about the simple interaction broke through the awkwardness that had defined their exchanges so far. On Earth, many animals and humans form bonds, Jinho explained. It's not just practical. We develop emotional attachments to them. Emotional attachments to non-sentient beings, Tal repeated, continuing to pet Miso, who had begun to purr loudly. This sound indicates pleasure. She likes you. I think I like her too, Tal said, the flat translation somehow inadequate for the moment. That evening, as they shared their first meal together, Jinho eating traditional Korean food, while Tal consumed specially formulated nutrient solutions, the conversation flowed more naturally. Miso had settled on the couch between them, occasionally receiving attention from both human and alien. Tomorrow I will begin formal observations of your educational institutions, Tal said. But I believe I have already learned something important today. What's that? Jinho asked. Humans define family beyond biological connections. Your relationship with this cat shows me that connection on Earth is more complex than our data suggested. Jinho smiled, relieved that their awkward beginning had evolved into something more comfortable. As he watched Tal gently stroke Miso's fur, he thought perhaps this cultural exchange might work after all. Sometimes the simplest connections form the strongest bridges between worlds. Jinho stood at the front of the lecture hall, watching his students file in while Tal observed from a seat in the corner. The alien visitor had insisted on experiencing the university class firsthand, not just through data streams. Jinho had worried about the distraction Tal might cause, but most students were trying hard to act like having an extraterrestrial in class was completely normal. Today we're discussing how language shapes family relationships across cultures, Jinho announced once everyone was seated. This connects to our previous discussions about linguistic relativism. Tal sat perfectly still, recording everything. The alien's skin had taken on a slight bluish tint that morning, which Jinho had learned indicated focused concentration. As Jinho began his lecture on kinship terminology, he noticed many students sneaking glances at Tal. He couldn't blame them. Despite the diplomatic preparation and news coverage of the Nevan Cultural Exchange Program, seeing an actual alien in person was still remarkable. In Korean, we have specific terms for older brother versus younger brother, depending on whether you're male or female, Jinho explained. These linguistic distinctions reflect the importance of birth order and gender in traditional family structures. A student raised her hand. Jinho recognized Haeyun, one of his most thoughtful third-year students. "Professor, I'm curious what family structures are like on Tal's planet," she said, looking directly at the alien visitor. "Do they have similar age hierarchies?" The class went silent. Although students had been told they could address Tal during discussions, no one had been brave enough yet. Tal's translator hummed to life. "On Neva, we do not organize by what you call family units. Our social structure is based on cognitive resonance groups." Haeyun leaned forward. "What does that mean exactly?" "Individuals who share similar thought patterns form collectives," Tal explained. Young Nevans are raised in development centers until their cognitive patterns emerge. Then they join appropriate collectives. Jinho could see his students processing this information. It was far different from anything in their textbooks about human societies. "So you don't know your biological parents?" Haeyun asked. "We know our genetic contributors, but the concept of parent as you understand it does not exist. All adults share responsibility for development centers." Haeyun frowned. "But don't you form emotional bonds with specific caregivers? With the people who raise you?" Tal's head tilted slightly. "Emotional bonds are not individual on Neva. We experience collective emotional states through our resonance groups. That sounds lonely, another student commented. Tal's skin shifted to a purple hue. Loneliness is an individual emotion. We do not experience it as you do. Jin-Ho stepped in, sensing the conversation was becoming complicated. This is exactly why cross-cultural communication is so fascinating. What seems natural to one group can be completely foreign to another. Hae-Yun wasn't finished. But what about love? Do Nevins fall in love? Form couples? Have children together? Jin-Ho was about to redirect the question when Tal responded. Reproduction is assigned based on genetic compatibility. We do not fall in love as humans describe it. Our satisfaction comes from contributing to the collective. The class erupted with questions, overwhelming Tal's translator. Jin-Ho called for order and suggested they continue the discussion more systematically. For the next hour, students took turns asking questions about Niven society, while Tal questioned them about human family structures. Jin-Ho watched as his normally theoretical course transformed into a living laboratory of cross-cultural communication. When Hae-Yun described her own family, parents, a younger sister, grandparents who lived nearby, aunts and uncles she saw on holidays, Tal seemed genuinely puzzled. You maintain connections with genetic relatives, even when they do not serve immediate practical purposes? Tal asked. Of course, Hae-Yun replied. They're my family. We love each other, even when separated by distance or disagreement. Especially then, she said firmly. That's what makes it family. Jin-Ho noticed Tal's skin shift to a deep green color he hadn't seen before. After class, as they walked back to the apartment, Jin-Ho asked about it. Your color changed when Hae-Yun was talking about family bonds. Does that indicate a specific state? Tal was quiet for a moment. The closest translation would be conceptual reorganization. I am processing information that contradicts previous understanding. You mean you're confused? More than confused. I must reconsider fundamental assumptions about social organization. They stopped at a small cafe to continue their conversation. Jin-Ho ordered tea while Tal observed the interactions between the barista and customers. Your student, Hae-Yun, challenged my understanding, Tal said. On Nivo, we believe social efficiency comes from organization by cognitive compatibility. But human families persist despite vast differences between members. Jin-Ho nodded. Family relationships can be complicated and difficult, but they're also some of our most meaningful connections. How do you resolve conflicts without collective consciousness? We talk. We argue. Sometimes we don't resolve them at all, Jin-Ho admitted. Tal processed this. And yet these inefficient bonds are central to human happiness. Often, yes, the struggle itself creates meaning. As they sipped their drinks, Jin-Ho found himself equally curious about Niven society. How do your collective decisions work? Do individuals ever disagree with the group? Cognitive resonance means we experience thoughts collectively. Disagreement, as you know, it doesn't exist. Jin-Ho tried to imagine it. So you never have arguments, political divisions, family disagreements. We have different resonance groups with different priorities, but within a group, there is harmony. That sounds peaceful, Jin-Ho said, but also limiting. Don't you wonder what it would be like to make your own choices, to form individual bonds? Tal's skin shifted again. Until coming to Earth, I did not. Now I find myself curious. On their walk home, they passed a playground where children played while parents watched. Tal stopped to observe. These small humans are being supervised by their genetic contributors. Tal asked. Yes, their parents. Jin-Ho confirmed. They're responsible for raising them. Even though professionals would be more efficient at development. Jin-Ho smiled. Parenting isn't about efficiency. It's about love. That evening, as they sat in the apartment with Miss O purring between them, Jin-Ho realized they were both questioning lifelong assumptions. He had always taken family structures for granted, while Tal had never considered alternatives to collective consciousness. Perhaps Tal said quietly, stroking Miso's fur. There is wisdom in both our ways. Your families create deep individual bonds. Our collectives create perfect understanding. Jinho nodded. Learning from differences. Isn't that the whole point of your visit? Yes, Tal agreed, though I did not expect to question our own foundation so quickly. Miso stretched and moved to Tal's lap, settling in comfortably. Jinho watched as the alien carefully adjusted to accommodate the cat. It seems you're already forming some individual bonds of your own, Jinho observed with a smile. Tal looked down at Miso. Yes, and I find I do not wish to share this particular experience with my collective. Is that wrong? No, Jinho said gently. That's just being human, or perhaps a little bit human. The evening had been planned for weeks. Jinho's parents had been eager to meet the alien visitors staying with their son, and his sister Minji had traveled from Busan specifically for the occasion. Jinho had spent the morning coaching Tal on basic dinner etiquette and topics to avoid, hoping to prevent any major cultural mishaps. Remember, my family will be curious about you, but some questions might be uncomfortable, Jinho explained, as they took the subway to his parents' apartment in northern Seoul. Tal's skin had taken on a yellowish tinge, which Jinho had learned indicated anticipation or alertness. I have studied your briefing materials on human family gatherings. I understand the importance of this ritual. Jinho's mother opened the door with a welcoming smile that only briefly faltered when she saw Tal in person. She recovered quickly, bowing politely. Welcome to our home, she said, her eyes wide with wonder. Please come in. Jinho's father stood in the living room, clearly trying to appear casual despite meeting an extraterrestrial for the first time. Minji was less reserved, immediately approaching Tal with open curiosity. This is amazing, she said, examining Tal from different angles. I've seen footage, but you're much more interesting in person. Your skin actually changes color. Minji, Jinho cautioned, remember what we discussed about personal space. His sister stepped back. Sorry, professional habit. I'm a biologist, she explained to Tal. Observation is welcome, Tal replied. Your scientific interest is appropriate. The family moved to the dining table where Jinho's mother had prepared a traditional Korean feast. She had included a place setting for Tal with the nutrient solution the alien required. Jinho tells us you're studying human social structures, his father said as they began eating. What have you learned so far? Humans organize primarily through genetic groupings rather than cognitive resonance, Tal responded. It is inefficient but creates strong attachment bonds. Jinho's mother smiled uncertainly. Well, family is everything, isn't it? The conversation progressed smoothly at first. Tal asked about Korean customs and family traditions, while Jinho's parents asked polite questions about Nivan culture. Minji asked about Nivan biology, which Tal answered with scientific precision. Then, as Jinho's mother served dessert, Tal's questions took an unexpected turn. I notice you have been married for 42 years, Tal said to Jinho's parents. Do you still engage in reproductive activities despite being past optimal reproduction age? A stunned silence fell over the table. Jinho nearly choked on his tea. That's not an appropriate question, he quickly told Tal. But Tal continued, and Minji, you are 34 and unmarried. Is this because you have found human mating rituals unsatisfactory? Or have you chosen professional achievement over reproduction? Minji's face flushed red. That's really not. Jinho explained he has had 3 significant pair bonding attempts that failed. Tal went on, turning to Jinho's parents. Were you disappointed in these failures? Did you consider him defective in mate selection? Jinho's father set down his spoon with a clatter. I think that's enough questions about our personal lives. I don't understand, Tal said, skin shifting to a confused gray tone. These are basic biological and social functions. Why is inquiry unwelcome? Jinho tried to salvage the situation. Tal, remember what we discussed about private topics. But reproduction and pair bonding are central to human social organization. Tal insisted. How can they be inappropriate for discussion? Minji, recovering from her embarrassment, leaned forward. It's not the topics themselves that are the problem. It's asking such personal questions of people you've just met. Personal. Tal repeated the word slowly. You mean information that belongs only to an individual. Exactly, Jinho said, relieved for his sister's intervention. Tal's skin darkened. This concept has no parallel on Neva. All information is collective. Jinho's mother, ever the peacemaker, offered more dessert. It's just a cultural difference. We're not offended, just surprised. But the atmosphere had grown tense. Jinho's father kept giving Tal wary glances, and Minji had become unusually quiet. When they finally left 2 hours later, Jinho felt exhausted from the constant cultural navigation. As they walked back to the subway station, Tal broke the silence. I have caused distress. This was not my intention. Jinho sighed. I know. But you asked about very private matters. On Neva, all thoughts are shared through collective consciousness. The concept of privacy does not exist. Jinho stopped walking. What do you mean, all thoughts are shared? Our species evolved with telepathic abilities. All members of a resonance group share consciousness. Individual thoughts are immediately known to all. Jinho stared at Tal. You never mentioned this before. You're telepathic. Not with humans, Tal clarified. Our abilities only work with other Nevans. I assumed you knew this basic fact about my species. It wasn't in any of the briefing materials, Jinho said, stunned by this revelation. So on your planet, everyone knows everything about everyone else. Within resonance groups, yes. The idea of keeping thoughts secret would be as strange to us as sharing all thoughts is to you. They boarded the subway, finding seats in the nearly empty late-night train. Jinho tried to imagine a life without privacy, without secrets. So when you asked those questions at dinner, I was attempting to gather information I would normally access directly through collective consciousness, Tal explained. I did not realize the information was considered restricted. Jinho rubbed his temples. This explains so much about our misunderstandings. Why do humans keep so many unnecessary secrets? Tal asked. Wouldn't sharing all information be more efficient? An elderly woman across the subway car gave them a curious look, clearly wondering about the strange-looking foreigner asking such odd questions. Privacy isn't about efficiency, Jinho explained quietly. It's about dignity, about having parts of yourself that belong only to you or to those you choose to share them with. But doesn't this create barriers between individuals? How can you truly know each other? Maybe we don't truly know each other, Jinho admitted. Not completely. Getting to know someone takes time precisely because we reveal ourselves gradually. Tal's skin shifted to a thoughtful blue. So human relationships are built on the selective revealing of private information. In a way, yes. Sharing private thoughts or feelings is how we show trust. When they returned to the apartment, Miso greeted them with loud meows, demanding attention. Tal bent down to pet the cat, seeming to find comfort in the simple interaction. I believe I have offended your family, Tal said. This was not my intention. They'll understand once I explain, Jinho assured him. Cultural misunderstandings happen. On Neva, misunderstandings do not exist. All thoughts are known. Jinho sat on the couch, considering this. That sounds peaceful in some ways, but also limiting. Don't you ever want thoughts that belong just to you? Tal was quiet for a long moment. Since coming to Earth, I have experienced thoughts I have not shared with my collective. Thoughts about your cat, about your family, about individuality. How does that feel? Unfamiliar, concerning. Tal paused. But also interesting. Like discovering a new sense. Jinho smiled. Welcome to the complicated world of human privacy, where we keep secrets not to deceive, but sometimes to protect ourselves and others. I will attempt to understand these boundaries, Tal promised, though I find them puzzling. And I'll try to understand a world without them, Jin-Ho replied, though I find that equally puzzling. As Miso settled between them on the couch, purring contentedly, Jin-Ho realized that understanding across such different species would require more than translation devices. It would require patience, empathy, and the willingness to see the universe through truly alien eyes. The hospital corridors gleamed under bright lights as Jin-Ho led Tal through the busy medical center. Doctors and nurses hurried past, some pausing to glance curiously at the alien visitor. Jin-Ho had arranged this visit weeks ago with his childhood friend Sung-min, now a respected obstetrician at Seoul National University Hospital. Medical facilities on Earth are organized by specialization, Jin-Ho explained as they walked. Sung-min focuses specifically on pregnancy and childbirth. Tal's skin shifted to an attentive yellow-green. Individual specialists rather than collective knowledge. Interesting. They found Sung-min waiting at the nurse's station, his white coat crisp over blue scrubs. Despite having been briefed about Tal's appearance, Sung-min still blinked rapidly when he saw the alien up close. "Welcome to our hospital," Sung-min said with a small bow. "Jin-Ho has told me you're interested in human medical practices." "Yes," Tal replied through the translator. "On Neva, healing is conducted through shared consciousness. Individual medical practitioners do not exist." Sung-min's eyebrows rose. "Shared consciousness. You'll have to explain that to me later. For now, let me show you around the maternity ward." As they toured the facility, Sung-min explained the basics of human prenatal care, showing them ultrasound machines and fetal monitors. Tal observed everything with intense focus, asking questions about the equipment and procedures. "So each developing human is monitored individually?" Tal asked. "Yes, we track each pregnancy separately," Sung-min confirmed. "Every mother and baby have unique needs." "Not batch processing. This seems inefficient." Sung-min laughed. "Medicine isn't about efficiency. It's about caring for individual lives." They stopped outside a window overlooking the nursery where newborns lay in small plastic bassinets. Some slept peacefully, while others waved tiny fists in the air. Nurses moved between them, checking monitors and adjusting blankets. Tal stood motionless before the window. "These are newly emerged humans." "Yes, most are less than 2 days old," Sung-min explained. "So small," Tal observed. "And each receives individual attention rather than standardized care." "Absolutely. Each baby has different needs." Jin-Ho watched as Tal processed this information. The alien's skin had taken on a deep blue color he hadn't seen before. Their conversation was interrupted by a commotion at the end of the hall. A team of medical staff rushed past with a gurney carrying a young woman clearly in the late stages of labor. Her face was contorted in pain as she gripped the sides of the bed. "Excuse me," Sung-min said, immediately alert. "That's one of my patients, and she wasn't due for 2 more weeks." Jin-Ho started to suggest they leave, but Sung-min was already hurrying after the medical team. He paused briefly, looking back at them. "Actually, would you like to observe? With the patient's permission, of course. It might be educational." Jin-Ho hesitated, but Tal's skin brightened. This would be valuable research data. 20 minutes later, after the patient, a woman named Jae-young had surprisingly agreed to the alien observer, perhaps too distracted by contractions to fully process the request. Jin-Ho found himself standing with Tal in a corner of the delivery room. He felt somewhat uncomfortable, but Tal watched with scientific interest as Sung-min directed the medical team. "Push now, Jae-young," Sung-min encouraged as monitors beeped steadily in the background. Jae-young's husband stood beside her, holding her hand and whispering words of support. She gripped his fingers so tightly that Jin-Ho could see the man wince, though he never pulled away. "The male remains despite not being medically useful," Tal noted quietly to Jin-Ho. "He's supporting her emotionally," Jin-Ho whispered back. "Emotional support has physical benefit." "Absolutely." They watched as the miracle of birth unfolded before them. Jin-ho had never witnessed childbirth before, and he found himself moved by the raw intensity of the experience. Tal remained perfectly still, observing with scientific detachment. When the baby finally emerged into Sung-min's waiting hands, a collective breath seemed to release in the room. The tiny girl's first cry pierced the air, strong and indignant. "She's perfect," Sung-min announced, quickly examining the newborn before placing her on Jae-young's chest. The transformation on the new mother's face was immediate, pain replaced by wonder as she touched her daughter for the first time. Her husband leaned close, tears streaming down his face as he gently stroked the baby's head. "They are leaking eye fluid," Tal observed. "Are they damaged?" "No," Jin-ho whispered, feeling a lump in his own throat. "Those are tears of joy. The strongest human emotions sometimes produce tears." They watched as the new family bonded, the medical team working efficiently around them, but giving them space for this crucial first meeting. Later, as they followed Sung-min to his office, Tail seemed unusually quiet. Jin-ho wondered what the alien was thinking about the intense scene they had witnessed. "That was human reproduction," Sung-min said once they were seated. "Very different from clinical descriptions, isn't it?" "On Neva, reproduction occurs in medical facilities," Tal explained. "Genetic contributors are not present. The emergence process is managed by specialists, and new Nevins are immediately transferred to development centers." Sung-min frowned. "The parents don't witness the birth." "The concept of parent as you understand it does not exist on Neva," Tal said. "Genetic material is collected from compatible contributors, but they have no further connection to the offspring." "No further connection." Sung-min looked shocked. "But who raises the children?" "All adults share responsibility for development centers. Young Nevins are raised collectively until their cognitive patterns emerge." Jin-ho had heard this before, but seeing Sung-min's reaction highlighted how truly alien the concept was to humans. "But what about bonding?" Sung-min asked. "The attachment between parent and child that we just witnessed." "Such attachments do not exist in our society," Tal said. "They would interfere with optimal development." The three sat in silence for a moment, the fundamental difference between their species hanging in the air between them. Finally, Tal spoke again. "The emotion I witnessed between the birth givers and the new human, it had physical manifestations, heart rate increases, chemical releases, neural activity patterns consistent with what you call love." "Yes," Sung-min confirmed. "The parent-child bond begins forming immediately after birth. It's both biological and emotional. And this bond persists throughout the human life cycle." "Usually, yes," Jin-ho said. "It changes form, but it remains." As they left the hospital, Tal stopped in the garden outside, looking up at the evening sky, where stars were just becoming visible. "I believe I now understand something fundamental about human society," Tal said. "Your entire social structure is built upon these individual bonds that begin at birth." Jin-ho nodded. "Family is where we learn to connect with others. It's our first experience of love. On Neva, we believe separation from genetic contributors creates optimal citizens devoted to collective good," Tal said. "But I wonder now what we may have sacrificed." Jin-ho didn't know how to respond to that. They stood silently for a moment, human and alien, contemplating different ways of bringing new life into the universe. "Thank you for allowing me to witness this," Tal finally said. "I will include it in my report to Neva." "Say yes," Tal suggested, skin brightening to a hopeful yellow. "Your linguistic expertise and cultural sensitivity make you an ideal candidate." And Tal paused, seeming to search for the right words. "I believe we have become what humans call friends." Jin-ho smiled broadly. "Yes, we are friends. And yes, I would be honored to visit Neva." "Excellent." The exchange would begin in approximately 6 Earth months, allowing time for preparation. They spent the next hour discussing practical details: the journey to Neva, living arrangements, research objectives. Jinho tried to contain his excitement as Tal explained what to expect from Niven society. As the time for departure approached, Tal stood and retrieved something from a small bag. It was a small potted plant with delicate green leaves and tiny blue flowers. I have observed that humans often exchange gifts at significant transitions, Tal said, presenting the plant to Jinho. This is a tradition I find logical and wish to adopt. Jinho accepted the pot, touched by the gesture. It's beautiful. Is it from the botanical garden? Yes. The botanist assisted me in selecting it. It is called forget-me-not in English. Tal's skin rippled with subtle patterns. The name seemed appropriate. It's perfect, Jinho said, feeling a lump in his throat. I'll take good care of it. The plant symbolizes growth and connection, Tal explained. My time on Earth has changed my understanding of both concepts. They walked together to the university grounds where the Niven ship would arrive. A small gathering had formed, university officials, government representatives, and some of Jinho's students who had grown fond of their alien visitor. Haeyun approached them, holding a small package wrapped in traditional Korean fabric. This is from all of us in the linguistics department, she said, handing it to Tal. It's a collection of poems and stories from different cultures. We thought you might enjoy sharing them with your people. Tal accepted the gift with a formal bow that Jinho had taught the alien weeks earlier. I am grateful. Literature is perhaps humanity's most unique creation. Other farewells followed. Jinho stood back, watching as Tal navigated human social customs with a grace that would have seemed impossible 3 months ago. When the Niven ship appeared in the sky, descending silently to the landing site, a hush fell over the crowd. The sleek craft settled on the grass, its surface shimmering in the morning light. Tal turned to Jinho one last time. In human custom, what is the appropriate farewell between friends? Jinho stepped forward and did something he had never thought he would do. He hugged an alien. Tal stiffened momentarily, then carefully returned the embrace. Until we meet again on Neva, Jinho said as they separated. Until then, Tal agreed, skin glowing with a warm golden light Jinho had never seen before. Thank you for teaching me about connection. As Tal boarded the ship, Miso, who had somehow escaped from the apartment and followed them, meowed loudly from Jinho's arms. Tal turned back one last time, raising a hand in farewell. The ship's door sealed, and moments later it rose silently into the sky. Jinho watched until it disappeared, the forget-me-not plant in one hand, Miso purring in his arms. He looked down at the small blue flowers and thought about the journey ahead. In 6 months, he would be the one traveling to an alien world, learning about a society built on principles completely different from Earth's. But thanks to Tal, he would not be going as a complete stranger. We're not so different after all, he whispered to Miso as they turned to walk home, the small plant cradled carefully in his hand, a living symbol of a friendship that now spanned worlds.